Hey everybody, welcome back to Sci-Fi and Friends podcast, episode number 68. So today's episode is a very special episode. My guest and I just kind of started rolling with it, and her stories, I just could feel the energy was already flowing. So I went ahead, hit record, and we just got right to it. So I decided to record a little intro before, but my guest today is best-selling author of the Ozarks Mystery series. She's authored 2 titles with author James Patterson, and her newest title, called Renegade, was released on March 22nd, just 2 days ago. The story of Kate Stone, who swore an oath to uphold the law, but is it time to take justice into her own hands? You can get Renegade at wherever books are sold: Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, your local bookstore, whoever you want to support. So without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Nancy Allen.
Well, to say, she gave it a shot.
It makes me think of that Winston Churchill quote. I just put it in my memorization app today, but it's something along the lines of something about the greatest hour, and how if a person doesn't prepare themselves for that moment of opportunity by training and all that, then they'll chalk it up as bad luck. I totally botched that quote, but
I get what you're saying.
Idea, right?
I get what he's saying.
Makes me think about that. As long as she's training and pursuing, that's the best you can do.
Yes,
and that's all you can ask. That's awesome. I love to hear that kind of stuff, because I went to California when I was 18 to pursue acting in LA, and then moved back for probably a year and a half, and then moved back and stayed there for another 2 years and did background acting and went to auditions. And through all those trials, I figured out okay, I like acting, but I'm really good behind the camera.
Yeah.
So then I transitioned behind the camera and into writing and production more. But acting is still fun because I'm not taking it so seriously.
Yeah.
It's just for fun. It's not like I'm making a living off this. It's, this character's interesting. Let's see what he has to say.
And one thing I've learned, being old, is that when I was the age you are when you went to California, I thought that everybody's life trajectory was going to be a straight line. The path would be a line. Oh, yeah. And mine has not been, not even professionally.
Yeah.
Because I went to law school, and I went into law school when it was just opening up to women in Missouri, because I graduated undergrad at SMS, Missouri State University,
there you go,
in 78, and then law school had just opened up because it was still a men's profession in Missouri. So I went into law school, graduated, got my JD, and I came back to Springfield, and I was one of the first handful of women who were practicing law in the southwestern part of the state, and I was the only woman in felony prosecution, because I came back to the hometown of Springfield, Queen City of the Ozarks, and I went into the Greene County Prosecutor's office. So I was the only woman, and since I was the only woman, they pushed a whole lot of sex cases at me, which I was glad to do. I'm an advocate for women, and I was at that time, and born a feminist, always been one. But it was a brutal education. I was 24 years old, handling violent crimes against women and children, rape cases, assault and abuse, and incest. Because this isn't even a secret. Greene County, Missouri has still the highest volume of sex crimes involving children in the state of Missouri, and Missouri's really high up there in the United States. Domestic violence as well. And so at 24, I came back into the community where I had grown up, and I saw the ugly, seamy side of my hometown through a magnifying glass. And it was a shock, a culture shock, and an abrupt education. But so when I was in my 20s and handling these terrible, terrible cases, I did think from time to time, good God, I ought to write a book about this. But I never picked up that pen until about 30 years later.
Oh, wow.
And the first book I wrote was the novel I always meant to write, which was The Code of the Hills.
Right.
And that is a story about a young assistant prosecutor in the Ozarks, in a fictional community, who has to handle a terrible incest case. Right. So that was the beginning of the writing career. But in between there, practiced law for 15 years. I taught at I taught law classes at the undergraduate level at Missouri State University for 15 years. But now what I am, my sole occupation is that I am an author. And in the past 8 years, I have had 7 novels published by the big publishing houses in New York City. By Hachette Book Group and HarperCollins in New York. And that's been kind of a wild and amazing experience. But it's all been really satisfying, but it wasn't a straight line at all. My path has been very wavy.
Did you think when you first were younger, did you think you would be a writer at any point?
I was always interested. I was an English major in undergrad, and I loved creative writing, and I was always a reader. But my father was a practical man, and he had 4 daughters. And he said, and I was the youngest of the 4, and he said, you will go to college, and I'm going to send you to any college you want that is a state university in the state of Missouri. And when you go, you're going to get your teaching degree. And I will tell you, at the time, I thought it was very confining. I thought, why can't I go east, west? Why can't I major in theater? Because I thought I'd like to be an actress as well.
Yeah.
But actually, as far as practical advice, it wasn't bad advice, particularly for the time. And like I said, by the time that some of the professions started opening up to women, because he saw education as pretty much the place where a woman could go and have a career path.
Right, sure.
But by the later 70s, when the professions were opening up, he sent both my sister and myself to law school. And then Susie practiced with him for many years in Lawrence County and in Greene County. And then when my dad went on the bench, because he became circuit judge in Greene County, Susie took over his practice. So,
very cool.
So his idea that the law is just a men's profession, those were words that he ultimately had to eat, but he was glad to do so.
Yeah. Many people did.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So of the 4 sisters, did they all go into law or just?
No, the 2 eldest became career educators. Yes, teaching in the public schools for their entire career, and had fabulous experiences. And I do believe that education is a calling. Every school teacher I know and everyone that I don't, I salute them. I believe that they are doing one of the most difficult jobs in our society. They are not compensated nearly enough. They don't get enough. They don't get enough support and credit from society at large, from our legislative bodies. They need more money. They need more. They need more resources. And I got to tell you, I'll beat the drum for school teachers any old day.
100%. I always think about when they go through budget cuts.
Yeah.
What is the first thing they cut? The arts.
Absolutely.
Which is, why we're maybe trickling ourselves into an Orwellian sort of.
Exactly.
Or a Huxley type of society, is because we don't read those books anymore and talk about that.
And then when the pandemic came, who did they decide that they were just going to load all the burdens of the pandemic upon? The school teachers.
Oh, right.
So,
teach from home, and now we're going to increase your.
Yes, and without any increase in pay, they had to not only be prepared to teach in the classroom, but before we even had the tech available to support it, they were also supposed to teach virtually. They were supposed to make everything happen for everyone in a new and unpredictable situation without ever having a dollar's increase in pay. Right. I tell you what. And there are teachers who are wanting to quit. I do not blame them for being disillusioned.
Oh, how could you?
About damn time
for
society to step up and offer them the appreciation and the compensation they deserve.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's not even just the teachers. When we went into the pandemic, I can think of all sorts of industries that had to change overnight to be Zoom call, or actually I did an interview with a nonprofit called Horses of Hope, and they do horse therapy for traumatic younger people, or actually probably any age. But how could they weren't able to bring those patients to the corrals. And so how were they able to do that? And they said they went through this whole process of setting up Zoom and actually Zooming with the horse, and the patient, and that actually worked for quite a while. And obviously they got back to where they needed to go. But Yeah, it was a very tumultuous time for many people.
But harder on some people than others.
100%.
And
100%.
you know, I had my son was a frontline worker and was employed at Walmart, and they had to keep the doors open all the time.
Right.
And it seemed like there were people who were in sufficiently comfortable circumstances that they were able to say, oh, I am going to stay at home, work from home, Zoom, because I've got the tech and I've got that kind of job.
Right.
But the experience for the vast majority of Americans was that they had to take on the burden of the pandemic, and they weren't necessarily just sitting talking into a computer in a home sweet home. And I would tell you that I think we'll look back as a society and see that we did have some distinctly different experiences during this, and there were privileged people who did not suffer nearly as much as those who had to keep the world turning. And those included our people who are frontline employees, our healthcare industry, and education. And they had to keep the world turning for everyone else.
Yeah, my power stayed on. My water kept working. Everything that I needed to exist kept going through that whole thing.
I had to go to the grocery store. And we all did,
right.
And I really appreciate the people who showed up to work there. And then I don't know, it's been a strange time, but I have greater appreciation for the people who make the day-to-day possible.
Oh, 100%. Yes, I'm very thankful for those. I got friends that work in the pipeline and doing the gas lines and stuff. And I don't want to do that job. And I'm very happy and thankful. Same with when I go to the grocery store and someone's checking me out. I'm so thankful that this person is here. And I was once that person as a younger man, but I always think like, you're here, I'm not, you're an angel. I'm going to treat you with so much respect and kindness. Thank you for doing this. Have a nice day, you know?
And, you know, in my, I was talking about my dad, another thing, in addition to sending us all to college saying, State University, you will be an education major. He also said that we would wait tables in the summer. This was true, high school through college. Now, that was one of the greatest educational experiences. Just because having served people, been a server in a restaurant, which I tell you, that's an experience also that will stay with you for the rest of your life. I am so grateful to the people who served me. And I know what it is to receive a tip, and I know how terrible it is when you don't receive it, because you rely on that for your compensation. They're not paying servers what they deserve to be paid because we have the tipping system. But also just, it's so important for people to treat waitresses and servers in restaurants with respect and courtesy. And I know that because I was on that side of the table. So.
Yeah, and I can tell when people have never done it before.
Yes.
And that's funny. That kind of brings us full circle on one aspect, and that's where I first met you. I was a server at Red Oak Steakhouse at Downstream, and I remember telling it was your family, and you were so jovial and happy every time I waited on you guys. It was just such a fresh relief of all these patrons coming in, and either they lost money or they won money or whatever. But to wait on your family, it was such a joy because of the energy, the vibration that you would give out. And I really didn't care if you tipped me or not, just because it was such a
God,
pleasure.
I hope we did.
You definitely did. You definitely took care of me. And that's when Chris LaTurner. Remember Chris LaTurner?
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah, we get to talking, and he goes, "Yeah, by the way, Nancy's an author." And I'm like, "What? Really?" Like, okay. And at the time, that's when I was having some sort of identity crisis. People would say, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "I wait tables." But on the side, I was trying to become this videographer. And like I said before we started recording, I went to California and pursued this acting career, and finally realized like the non-straight path kind of leading me to like, "Oh, you're better with words," But I could never admit that. I could never tell anybody that I was a writer. So, but to interact with a writer, I really found a lot of joy and a lot of hope in that.
And I know what you mean about that hesitation, because particularly in the beginning, it's like you fear that you are guilty of hyperbole if you say, if someone says, what do you do or what are you, to say I am a writer or I'm an author, it's like you're afraid somebody's going to say, no, you're not.
Right. Okay, Ernest Hemingway.
Yeah, right. Right. Oh, you're Charlotte Bronte.
Yeah, right.
And so there's a process to being able to step up and say, yeah, I really am. I'm going to claim it for myself because I do it and I'm proud of it, and I'm not going to be too bashful to give myself that title anymore.
Right. And my switch came in the form of it became so painful not to say it rather than to say it. Rather, if you're going to make fun of me or call me out, it's actually more painful if I just keep holding on to the denial, you know. So finally it's like, yep, that's what I do, or that's what I'm trying to do, or I'm in the process of, and it's actually worked out very well. That frees up a lot of the energies the backed up energies that you had to flow into your work, So, working with James Patterson.
Yes.
How is that? Because you didn't start that way. You started with the Code of the Hills.
I started with the Code of the Hills,
and that did very well.
There was it was from the Code of the Hills from picking up a pen, which I literally do because I handwrite my manuscripts in the first version. Picking up the pen and writing that book, and it took me about 6 months, and then I had a book. I had a manuscript, Code of the Hills. And I was Nancy Allen in Springfield, Missouri. I had no publishing background. I had no contacts in the industry. The extent of my education in creative writing was one class at SMS in 1977. I had a book, right?
Right.
And what I wanted, because I had formed this vision, this dream, I wanted the Code of the Hills to be published by one of the big 5 houses in New York City. So that was the dream. So I had to figure out how to get there. It took some doing. So I had a manuscript, and I knew enough at that point to know I needed a literary agent because I had a book in the thriller genre. I had a legal thriller, and you got to have an agent to even submit to the big houses.
Sure.
So I set out to find an agent and send out query letters. You got to send a query letter with your first lines, your hook, and then you tell about your book, and then you tell about yourself, and then you tell them you're glad to send them a manuscript. And I sent out so many query letters for the Code of the Hills that were either rejected or just outright ignored. I lost count. Right. But I would tell you, it was so many that an ordinary person might have become discouraged. But the rejection made me insanely determined. I was going to get an agent, and then I was going to get a book deal, and I was, by God, going to walk into Barnes & Noble and see my book on the shelf. So I got an agent, my first agent. Took me 10 months. 10 months to find someone in New York who would agree to represent me. And so got the first agent, and she said, you're going to have to revise. And I expected that.
Sure, right.
And then over the course of a year, she'd send me some piddly advice, and I'd try and do whatever she wanted. And then it was about the 12-month mark. She sent me an email, and it said, Nancy, I've been thinking about your book. And you know, the vulgar language that your main character uses, she said, it's off-putting. It's got to go. And I read that and I thought, I don't believe you understand my book. And I fired that woman. I fired her that day. And I set out to find another agent. Got my second agent in 2 weeks because I was starting to figure out just how the world worked. Yes. Got a new agent in 2 weeks, and we revised. And she got me an offer, but we parted ways. That's another story. And then I looked for my third agent, and I got a new agent in 3 days. And I am still with the Sandra Dykstra Literary Agency today. And Jill Marr is my agent. And she sent it off, and it landed at HarperCollins, where it landed with this lovely, lovely young editor. She loved the Ozarks. She loved my character, Elsie. She liked my voice in the book, and she liked the story. And so, bam, I had a legal thriller series with HarperCollins, and I was, oh my gosh, I've done it. So I have 4 books in that series. And
That's
it was
the Ozark Mysteries?
The Ozarks Mystery series, yes, with HarperCollins, and they star the young prosecutor, Elsie Arnold, who is, a prosecutor with feet of clay, cusses like a sailor and drinks like a fish, which, as you know, got me into trouble with one agent. So I had just finished on editing my 3rd book in that series with that lovely editor who'd brought me on board at HarperCollins, and she called me on the phone. And she said, Nancy, I am leaving HarperCollins. And I was so distressed because I adored her. And she said, yeah, I'm leaving. I've got a new job. And I was so sad, sad. Until 2 weeks later when she called me again, and she said, I'm sitting at my new job, and now I'm at Little Brown with Hachette Book Group, and I'm part of the Patterson editorial team, and Mr. Patterson would like to write a book with you if you're interested in working with him.
Oh, wow.
We were talking about luck earlier.
Yeah.
That was my lucky day. Yeah. That if I had not been so insane to keep crawling up the long mountain when times were tough and nobody wanted that book about Elsie, the prosecutor in the Ozarks, if I hadn't kept trudging along, I wouldn't have been there.
And to not,
when that lucky day happened.
And not to change your voice when that one editor said, she cusses, this Elsie character is too rough, and you said, no, this is my vision, this is what I'm sticking with.
One thing I do know is authenticity is key, and if you're going out there, what can you sell except who you are? What your experience is, how your brain works. And so for me anyway, and there may be far more talented people than I who can fake it, but really all I've got to bring is my authentic self. And so I knew that if she let me sell that out, I got nothing.
Right.
So at any rate, as far as knowing when it was time to part with that first agent, I thought, if you don't like Elsie, you don't like me. Right. So it was just time for us to bid one another adieu.
Right. But it got your foot in the door.
I figured out,
system.
The system. And in the course of that year, I was able to kind of observe how things went on. And I try to be a quick learner, old but quick.
Yeah, definitely. I could see that.
I'm going to clear my throat. I beg your pardon.
Oh, yeah. So James Patterson says, I'd like to write with you.
Well, it turns out that Mr. Patterson had talked to his editors, and he'd been thinking he'd like to write a legal thriller and set it in the South. And he said, anybody have any idea of who I might work with? And there was Trish, who had just come, just switched over, and had just edited my 3 Ozarks legal thrillers, which she had brought on board. Now. Oh, there are 4 now.
Oh, we're 4
but
now.
she edited 3, and then I did a 4th with them after Trish left. And so she said, yeah, I got someone in mind. So I would tell you that that's when it began, and I can tell you that it is a pleasure and a privilege to work with the most successful writer in the world, because that's what he is. James Patterson sells more books than anybody. He has sold more books than, name a name, Stephen King.
That's the first one that comes to my mind. That would even maybe get close.
John Grisham. I'm trying to think who would even be in the same ballpark. It doesn't matter. He's sold more books than they have.
100%.
And in fact, at Hachette Book Group, James Patterson's more like God. James Patterson alone is responsible for 1/3 of Hachette Book Group's annual sales, whole publishing house.
Wow.
So,
which is not surprising though. He's really
he has an incredible fan base, and he is incredibly productive.
Yes. So what were some of the, how did the structure work with him? Were you swapping manuscripts back and forth? Did you take some meetings?
I am always asked those questions because people are really, really interested. So when I learned that I was going to be working with Jim, I call him Jim now.
That's pretty cool.
that's what I wanted to know too. So I thought, well, this will be easy. I'm just going to go to Google because you can find everything out if you just look. And I'm just going to Google his co-authors, and I'm going to see just exactly what they say about the working process and those details. And I found nothing. Because, Colton, the details of the creative collaboration with James Patterson and his co-authors, it's like a secret formula, kind of like the secret formula for Coca-Cola.
You're in the club.
And you're in the club. And if you want to work at the Coca-Cola bottling company and make the Coca-Cola with the Coca-Cola king, you don't sit there and say, okay, we got caramel coloring,
right.
we got fuzzy water, we got cloves,
cane sugar.
Oh, we got cane sugar,
Yeah.
we got I was trying to think, what do they got? They got caramel coloring. I mean, we know anyway.
Right.
So yeah. But I can tell you one thing. Here's one thing I can tell you. I think it's interesting. And Patterson will talk about this any old time. You know, there's two kinds of writers, of fiction anyway. There is the pantser and the outliner. And everybody knows that a pantser, or you could say an organic writer, they write by the seat of their pants.
Right.
So they get an idea for a book, and they sit down, and it's page 1, chapter 1, it was a dark and stormy night.
Yeah.
And you let the story take you away.
Right.
And that's pretty common with novelists. The much less common kind of writer is an outliner. And with an outliner, and James Patterson is the most famous outliner there is.
Okay.
Before you ever write page 1, chapter 1, you have an idea for a book, and you sit down and you make an outline, a meticulous chapter by chapter by chapter outline of everything that happens in the book, beginning, middle, and end. And I've done it both ways.
Okay.
Because when I started out with the Ozarks Mystery series, I was a pantser. And I had an inspiration, and I'd write the story, and off I'd go. And I'll tell you, as far as fiction writing, there's something very romantic about letting the story carry you, letting the story turn where it wants to. Being a pantser is a lot of fun, and it's so much easier to start a book when you're a pantser. I'm going to tell you, that outline's killer.
Yeah.
It's killer. But on the other hand, it's a lot easier to finish a book if you are an outliner, because the outliner never runs into that horror, every writer's nightmare, which is the dreaded writer's block. You don't have that if you're an outliner. Right. If you're an outliner, you think you're stuck, you want to know what happens next, look at your damn outline.
Right. Yeah, sure.
So it's easier to begin the book if you're a pantser, but it's the outliner who's always going to be able to write the most two beautiful words in the English language, which are the end.
100%. So you being a mystery writer, you pants it, and then do you return and make an outline and then maybe adjust some of the mystery parts? Because you got to set it up in a way of payoff and all that. That seems difficult.
And I think when I write a book as a pantser, I usually have, I know what the beginning is. That you got. You can see that. Yeah. I usually have at least a foggy idea of how it's going to end.
Sure.
Hard part's the middle. And I don't know any novelist who wouldn't tell you that's true. And really, whichever way you write it, the hard part is the middle. But I always have to go back.
Yeah.
Because there's something even if it's the mystery part or the suspense part or whatever it is, you got to make sure that you structured and you built in. And the reader wants you to give them a little indication maybe of what the pieces of the puzzle are, but not too much. Not too much, because, they don't want to say, I figured it out by page 50. No, they don't want that.
Yes.
But you got to have some directions so that they could have picked it up as they look back on it. So you always have to return to it. But gosh, one thing I have learned that is painful, and if you tell, when you tell people this who haven't been at it for a while, the revision is as lengthy as writing, the initial version. I mean,
maybe longer.
Oh yeah, to go back and there is so much redoing and revising,
right.
But it's just part of the craft,
right?
Like any job.
Do you do it more scene by scene, or do you do it more sentence by sentence?
I would say, for any novelist, the structure. Well, how do I know any novelist? The novelists I know, the structure is scene by scene by scene. And I'll say, for me, I see it like a television show,
Sure.
like you see a scene in your head.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm watching an episode and I see the scene in my head. And if the magic is really going that day, I will hear the dialogue in my inner ear, and that's a good day. Because it is not hard to write that chapter when you can see it in your head and you're hearing it in your ear, and the pen just can't move fast enough.
Yeah.
What's tricky is when you got nothing and you're working under deadline.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to have a book by date X. And you got nothing in your head and nothing in your ear, but I got to sit down and put something down on a sheet of paper because it's a job and I have to work at it.
Yeah.
So when that happens, get something down and you can always make it better later. So maybe I will infuse the magic on the second go round.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, as long as you have something rather than a blank page.
Because blank page can't do anything
there's nothing
but something, even a terrible page,
Yeah.
you can improve.
There might be one line. There might be one scene where you think, or one moment in the scene where like, that stays, and I'll build off of that.
Or you can come back to it and say, okay, now we can do this and this and this and make this work.
Right.
But if you got nothing
blank
down.
page.
And so when I was writing for fun on the first version of Code of the Hills, I do it when I felt like it, right? Because I was writing it for fun.
Sure.
So I do it when I felt like it, and I did it when I was inspired, and I only wrote the chapters when I could see them in my head, and I heard the voice in my ear.
Right.
But now I do it for a living, and I have, right now I'm under 2 publishing contracts, and I pretty much got to do it every day, whether I feel like it or not. So even though it's the coolest job you can imagine, it's still a job.
100%.
And so it's like, you really don't feel like going to work every day.
Sure.
There are days when it would be so nice to just be able to do whatever you want to do. But now I'm writing is a job now. It's an occupation. So that takes some of the romance out of it. But it's still a pretty damn groovy job, and a lot of people would like to have it. Yeah. And really, I feel anytime I say, oh my gosh, this is so hard, nobody really wants to hear you complain about how hard
Your
it
awesome
is to
career.
be.
Oh my! But I do understand that pain or that stress of like there's nothing there, that is a
And
very
the clock's
intimidating.
ticking, where it's like the hourglass and the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, right.
Man, that can be scary.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm not even a paid writer, and I always think, one of these days, whenever I get to that summit, I won't feel this way. And it's like, no, I'm just going to swap out one stress for another stress. I stress because it's not real to me yet, and I'm not getting paid, or people aren't like, oh yeah, you really are. I just swapped that for a deadline.
It's true. It's true.
So,
and then when I was still teaching, and I loved the work I did at SMS. I will tell you that classroom experience was glorious, but it was hard to juggle the writing and the teaching because I was writing the Ozarks Mystery series. While I was still full-time at Missouri State, and I was teaching 900 students a semester at that point. And I would think, this is so hard. If only I only had to do one or another. And then, when Patterson came along, Missouri State could not compete with the compensation.
Sure.
So I love the classroom, but bye-bye, Missouri State, because, if it's going to be a full-time job, what are you going to do?
Right.
So anyway, so now I just have the one occupation, not juggling 2, and you still find something to complain about. Sure, why can't I just watch television all day? It's terrible.
I'd like to garden a little bit, anything. So I know you can't give me the secret formula of working with James Patterson.
I really can't. And really, if we do this, we'll just go around and around, and I will not tell you in 10 different ways.
Absolutely. But I would be curious, maybe what is one thing that you learned while working with him that maybe makes you a more productive writer or a more creative writer or just a better writer in general?
I will tell you, his discipline is unbelievable. And you have to adopt the discipline of James Patterson if you're going to work with James Patterson. He's got a work ethic because, sometimes people who are in creative businesses want to be more creative and less businesslike. But with James Patterson, we hit our dates. We stick to the pattern. We stick to business, and we keep that creative machinery. We keep that going smoothly because what we are trying to come up with a book, which is essentially a product, which is going to entertain a body of people, a whole lot of people, and we have to always be moving towards completion.
Right.
So I do think that working with Jim was the best way to get over some things that creatives sometimes do, where creatives let themselves off the hook and be able to say, I don't have to do it today. Oh, I'm not feeling it. Oh, the muse.
Where's the
I have to
muse?
wait on the muse. I got to work through it.
Yeah.
I've just got to keep the professional process going because publishing is a business. And so I have to conduct myself and the work I do in a business-like fashion.
Right. And you're professional.
Yes. And he's told me, but he has given me really good advice that I try and keep in mind. We write in short chapters because that is a Patterson trademark, and we make sure that something dramatic happens in every chapter, and we try to end it on some kind of a punch that makes that reader want to turn the next page.
Sure.
He also is famous for telling the people he works with that we're not going to put the parts in the book that readers want to skim over. So the parts that readers want to skip, like the lengthy description of the flora and fauna of the countryside, we just don't put that in.
Sure.
Because they're going to skip over it.
Yeah.
So we just leave out the parts that readers skip. And he is someone who has said, anybody who can think up a beginning of a book is talented. And anyone who can think up the beginning and the ending has really got something going on. But if you can write the middle, you're brilliant. And really, I cannot stress the burden of the middle. Because, you start out 100 miles an hour with the beginning because you've got it. And by the time you come to the end, it's like the propulsion. It picks up again, and you're rolling, and man, you can feel it. And here you go to the end. But good God Almighty, that middle. And we're talking about a process of a year, because authoring and certainly co-authoring, because you have to have the coordination. A book's is a process and a project of a year, at any rate, and like I said, it's a privilege to do, but the beginning is really fun, and the ending is tremendously satisfying, and it moves on its own. Really, it does. But oh, good God, that middle. But anyway, and here I'm bitching again, though. I'm complaining about this really cool process that I get to be involved in.
It is fascinating because you're pulling up the hood of the car and you're saying this works really well. This works really well. Right here, this thing. Do you think that's because trying to connect the two, the start and the finish, trying to get those two meshed and flow together? Is it the nature of storytelling that when you stretch it out like taffy for 12 months, is it more delicious in the beginning and then more delicious at the end? Maybe if any journey you would take, maybe any year-long journey you take, you hit the middle. True.
And your feet are going to drag. I think that may just be human nature.
Could be. Makes me think of the road trips I've taken to California. And right in the middle, I think, I don't want to drive anymore. I do not want to be here. But then I think, well, I have literally no choice. I have to force myself to keep going, because if I stop here, this is the desert and I'll die.
And I don't get on I-44 behind the wheel myself very often. But if I do, I'm happy when I'm in Springfield. And then around Mount Vernon, I start thinking, when am I getting to Joplin?
Right.
How long's it going to be? And then we get close to Joplin, and it's jolly again. I love Mount Vernon, by the way. I lived there until I was 7 years old.
There you go.
And in fact, my Elsie books, people who know Springfield and know Mount Vernon, Missouri, Lawrence County, some people think that it's set in one and some in the other. And I say it's kind of set in Spring Vernon or
right, exactly.
Mount Springfield.
Hybrid.
Yeah. But actually, since we lived there, and I knew that town square as a child and that groovy old courthouse. But then I worked in the groovy old courthouse in Greene County in Springfield, and you kind of make your own world.
Sure.
But sometimes I do take a piece of the Lawrence County town square.
Yeah, absolutely. That's probably makes it more authentic in a way.
Authenticity. Right. Here again we go.
Yeah. That's interesting. The discipline that you talked about earlier, it makes me think, are you familiar with Stephen Pressfield, The War of Art? He talks about resistance.
I don't. Tell me about that.
He talks about this unseen force, capital R, resistance, and how whether you're called to write or to make art or to start a business, that this force will do whatever it can to deter you somewhere else.
Oh, that's such an interesting idea.
And so his thing is every morning he wakes up and he has to go to war with resistance, which he's a writer, so he makes sure he sits down.
Yeah.
He says he recites the prayer to the muse, which I think it's from the Iliad, I think. He has his little process, and then he gets down to writing. But he wrote another book called Turning Pro, and basically it's along the lines of artists, they romanticize, the Hemingway drinks all day and then maybe writes a paragraph and then he,
F. Scott Fitzgerald was having a lot of fun too.
It seems like it, right? But they don't do the work like they're supposed to. They do all the fun, but not the work. And that whole book is about sitting down, putting the work in, putting the words on paper, and actually doing the work and being pro.
And there are some tricks about that resistance thing. When we were in the pandemic, so I was I didn't have to leave the house. And so, a person, as we all, many of us learned, you could stay in your bathrobe all day, who would know? I found that it was just like a mental thing that if I was in the bathrobe all day, if I was going to keep the bathrobe on till 2, I might not get started doing any work until 2.
Yeah.
I had to learn that even in this pandemic existence, for me to work effectively, I had to get up in the morning and get cleaned up and dressed before I came downstairs, or I was going to think it was a forever Saturday, you know.
And that's what it felt like. That's that ritual, to putting fake it till you make it, to where you just go through the motions and you're teaching yourself, you're teaching your body and your mind that when we do this, this is the outcome. And,
writers have tricks. I was talking by email to a good friend of mine. We started out at about the same time. We had the same publisher at HarperCollins. And I said, oh, gosh, I've got a deadline on a sequel to Renegade. And I said, I've just got to be more productive. And she said, you know what I do are sprints. She said, if you will she said, I sprint for an hour and a half. You can try 45 minutes and you can't get out of the chair until the chime goes off on your phone. You would think I wouldn't have to have a thing like you do for a kid who's doing homework. Doing a sprint. If I'm not sitting in the chair, I'll set the phone alarm.
Yeah. And Lamont talks about that. I think she does 45 minutes.
Oh my gosh!
She says that's all I can do, and she says if I did an hour, I'd be lying.
And I got to tell you, I write in 45-minute chunks, and I got to get up after 45 minutes. Sometimes I can go back down and set it again.
Right.
But no, if I agree, because I also think there is just kind of a finite brain thing with 60 minutes. I taught all those years. You can teach a class for 50 minutes and they will look at you and they will listen to you and they will attend to what you were saying. When they gave me the hour 15, you lost them.
Yeah.
You lost them 50 minutes in.
Of course.
How long can people sit in a church service?
Right.
I mean, there comes a point at which we are going, when am I out of here? Isn't this about over?
Yeah.
I try to never do anything. 60 minutes hard limit. I think we talked about that. 60 minutes is my hard limit because Because I think that's about what the human attention span is.
Yeah, Cal Newport wrote a book called Deep Work, and he's I think he's a computer programmer, very, very intelligent guy. But his whole hypothesis was 90 minutes. That the brain works in these 90-minute intervals. And so if you're going to do deep work, like he's coding, he'll lock the door, throw the phone away, and set the timer for 90 minutes and engage in that one activity. And when it goes off, it's, he's done.
And the 90 minutes, I can revise for 90 to where I have, well, and I don't have, anyway, this is some other notes. But if I have, if I've got my drafts of chapter, I could sit 90 minutes and I can rewrite. I could rewrite for 90. But if I am picking up the pen and writing a new script on the page, 45.
Yeah. Well,
it's a different process.
It's a different energy, right?
Yeah, it absolutely
to engage with the
is.
Imagination?
Absolutely.
Right. They talk about these chess masters that were burning 9,000 calories a day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and they weren't moving from their
sitting
seat
there doing this.
because of their exactly. So I'm the same way. If I'm watching it, and sometimes I'll get unplugged from reality. I'll be talking to the wife and then start to glaze over because it's.
I do that too.
Hang on.
I do that too.
Yeah,
Randy and I will be
good.
sitting out on the side porch, and he's saying things. But wait, I just saw the scene in my head. I mean, I cannot respond to you. But I know exactly what you're talking about.
We were going. She's actually on a work trip right now, and we were going over her flights just to make her feel more comfortable. Like, this is where you connect. And I had Spotify on, and I clicked My Way. Why can't I think of it?
Are you talking about Frank?
Yes, Frank Sinatra. I clicked My Way to play in the background.
And now the end is near.
Oh my God! As soon as it played, I just
faced the final curtain.
I just stopped. Because I could see this scene in my head from a story that I've been playing with. And she goes, "Did you leave me?" Like, yep, sorry. I got to write this down.
I'll be back, but I got to write this down.
I jotted down a note just to get her through. But yeah, that's good to know that you...
I play Frank in the kitchen a lot of evenings because when I cook, I like to hear Frank sing.
100%.
So,
yeah, I like the vibe.
And it's the vibe. And I don't know, Frank just had that whole cool thing going on. Because, I mean, I was kind of a kid for Frank Sinatra, but graduated high school in 74. Nobody was listening to Frank in 74. But no, I think Frank's got it going on.
Yeah, it makes me feel classy because he's always got a suit on and all the gangster movies.
And
they all
also,
got suits.
I don't know, the kind of that BT's,
I feel like if I'm in the club listening to Frank, like I'm supposed to be there. Like they're like, yeah, you can come in.
We could totally be in the Rat Pack.
Yeah.
I think they were having a lot of fun.
They looked like it.
But I think Frank got some work done, but I think they were having a lot of fun.
Yeah, right. That's the balance. Have fun, but get the work done.
Not sure Dean got so much work done. I don't think Dean Martin got so much done.
He had a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
So when it comes to characters, that authenticity, how do you approach that?
And here again, I'm a storyteller, right? And I always have been a storyteller, even before I was a writer with a capital W, I guess.
Yeah.
But as a storyteller, the main character, I always walk in the main character's shoes. I always do. And to some extent, I always feel like my protagonists they share some important characteristic with me. Sure. And the funny thing about that, so it was, and they're all women lawyers. Yeah. So there's Elsie in the Ozarks Mystery series. In the most recent Patterson release, we've got 2 full-length novels, and we had Martha was the star of one and Leah of the other. And in the book that just came out this week, which is entitled Renegade, it's Kate Stone, and she's an assistant DA. And so you read, like you go to Goodreads and you read reviews and you read what people think, and once in a while, maybe more than once in a while, I hit upon this same thing where they'll go, "That character, Kate, is totally unlikable." Or they'll say, "Elsie is so immature. Yeah. Martha's a basket case. Leah's a jerk." And I'm, "What?
Yeah, right.
What?
Yeah.
Why are you calling me names?" Because really, it kind of shake you up since you think, but they're all kind of sort of me. You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea.
Sure.
But what I have found, and I've thought about this before, when I write a book, I always have a lot of female characters, and I know that it's true that there are creators who can, I'm sure, write as effectively any character. Maybe I'm full of baloney. I don't believe that. I write more effective and authentic female characters than male because I have experienced what they experience. And so when I write female characters, and I always got a lot of them, I'm walking in their shoes. And whether they are heroes or villains, whether they are minor characters or major, whether they're children or old women or young women, I'm always walking around in those shoes. When I write male characters, I write them from observation. So even though I guess it would be politic for me to say that, of course, women can write men as well, and men can write women, I actually don't believe that, and I would not be authentically me if I told you that. I think that men can certainly write books with female lead characters, but I generally don't find them as believable. And certainly women could write men, but I tend to think that it is more they are working rather than through life experience. They're writing by observation. Not that there's anything the matter with that.
Yeah, right.
But what was your original question? Did I get too far away from it?
No, this is fascinating.
So anyway, yeah, so if I'm writing a villain, and I try to do this regardless, I try to get in the villain head. What are they thinking? How do they perceive? What is it they want? What are they trying to do? And so I'll do that with a character who is a child or a villain or a protagonist or a love interest. Jesus, that's hard. I don't write. I really try to avoid the love entanglements.
Really?
And I never want to write sex because I am so terrible at it. And I'm 65 years old. I have 2 children, It's not something I haven't experienced. Some people can write romance and sex, and I hand it to them. I salute them.
Yes.
I cannot do it. I cannot do it. I can write the courtroom, though. I can write the courtroom till the cows come home.
That's amazing.
Some people have said, do you think you have to be a lawyer to write a legal thriller? And I would say, well, obviously you don't have to be, because the greatest legal thriller of all time was To Kill a Mockingbird, and Harper Lee was not a lawyer. Yeah. But I do think, having had trial experience, having intimate knowledge of the courtroom and how it works, and also having walked in the lawyer's shoes when you win cases or when you lose them. Because to lose the case you were really invested in is a devastating experience. I think when you bring that to the legal thriller, I think you're going to have a more authentic book than somebody who is just trying to sit out in the audience and write what they see. Right. And look at John Grisham's success.
Sure.
It's because he's the real deal. Right. And he's a storyteller. So that's what I want to be. Okay, so Grisham is the king of the legal thriller. And we know Dan Woodrell, who lives in West Plains, who wrote Winter's Bone. He's the king of hillbilly noir. And I just want to be queen. I want to be the queen of the hillbilly noir legal thriller. That's all I ask.
Well, if you aren't already, you are well on your way.
Thank you. I thought you were going to crown me, Colton, today, but we'll just... I'm teasing.
Let me grab my crown real quick. So this latest book, Renegade, just came out 2 days ago. So far, good reception.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Absolutely. So, can you tell us a little bit about the story?
I can. Okay, and now you can tease me about this, goad me about it in a minute. It is about an assistant DA named Kate Stone in New York City. And Kate Stone, has become disillusioned with the justice system because she was in a case that she was very, very invested in, and the defendant was found not guilty. And so because she is disillusioned, it happens that circumstances cause her to become embroiled and associated with a circle of mavericks, people who feel they've been done wrong by the legal system, and so they join together because they want to fix it. They want to take circumstances where the legal system has failed and they want to correct those. And so we have the story, and I felt like this was such an interesting premise. First of all, I get to write another badass female heroine.
Yeah.
I'd love to write a badass girl lawyer. And then to put her in a situation where the criminal justice system has let her down, I know what that feels like. And then also, I wanted to show, though, people can be tempted to take the law in their own hands in those circumstances. Yeah. Let's show the terrible fallout that can come when people think they want to take the law into their own hands. So it is on the tip of your tongue. You're going to say, Nancy, you phony baloney. What are you doing setting this book in New York?
Oh.
Are you going to say that? Is that what was...
Nancy, why did you set this in New York?
It happens that when I think Juror number 3 came out, Juror number 3 was my first book with Patterson. Hit number 1, New York Times Bestsellers list. And an independent film producer and entertainment company from New York liked it. And so they reached out to my editor, and they said, here's a premise. Let's write this book about a female DA in New York City, and we're going to pitch it for film, and you pitch it for book, and let's see where we go with it.
This is where Renegade
and this
developed.
was so they had this crumb of the premise, see?
Okay, yeah.
And so I partnered with them, and so I wrote the book. We got the book deal. Will there be a movie? What do I know? That wasn't my side. I did my job.
Yeah, sure,
no,
sure.
But they're great. Maybe that's going to happen.
That would be awesome.
That would be really cool. But it does happen that even though I am not a New Yorker, as you can tell, I do have a love affair with New York City that's been going on for half a century, because when I was 16 years old, about 50 years ago, I saw New York for the first time. And I was a kid in Springfield, Missouri, and Colton. I had never been anywhere. And at this time, it was 1972, the tallest structure in Springfield, Missouri was the grain elevator. So there was a teacher at Glendale High School who decided we needed some culture. And he loaded up a bus and took us to New York, and that dumped us off on the corner of... we were in a Simi Hotel on 8th Avenue and 42nd Street, which at the time in 1972, that's what they called the Deuce. It was the red light district.
Oh, okay.
It was, my God, you talk about a culture shock. But it was also the theater district. And then I thought, oh my gosh, I'd never seen anything so cool in my life. Walked a little ways and there I was on Times Square. I've been looking at the grain elevator, right?
Sure.
All of a sudden I'm on Times Square, and there was... well, and there were bright lights, as you can imagine. There was a billboard with the Marlboro Man.
Wow.
And he was blowing smoke rings. I'm talking real smoke rings. I went out and bought a pack. I'll tell you.
Gotcha.
And then, I was getting standing room tickets to 10 shows in 7 days, saw the original production of Grease. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. So I thought New York was paradise, and I have been back just as frequently as I've been able to manage to get myself there. And now I have a daughter living in New York. And so I thought it would be a ton of fun to take one of my female lawyers that has lots of flaws and quirks, but also has nobler traits and is passionately dedicated to seeing justice done. I thought, let's take her and let's put her in New York and see what we can do with her.
And that's a little bit out of your wheelhouse, being in the South and setting it in,
it is
the code of the hills and that rural type of setting. So,
and in addition, you may have noticed I have something of a dialect. Part of my problem was trying to watch the use of language. And I'm not talking about cuss words. There's plenty in all my books. Well, not so much my ones with Jim. But
just go check out Elsie.
What I find is that my Ozarks idiom, which is kind of Southern idiom, that's what, and of course I've got an editor at Grand Central Publishing, and she is not an Ozarker. So she was able to keep an eye out for that too. But it's just my natural speech patterns, and so I had to be a little bit careful that my New York characters weren't falling into that.
Be a big challenge.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm really looking forward to reading
Oh,
that. Yeah.
I can't wait for you to.
Amazon popped up. It said new from Nancy Allen. I was like, nice. I'm going to grab it. So, well, I know your time is very valuable, and I appreciate you sitting down with me. We're about an hour in, so we're hitting that mark.
It flew.
I know. It's fun.
It flew.
Once you get going.
Yeah.
I used to do an intro, but we just started talking. I'm like, no, we're just going to record.
Yeah.
So,
it was dandy.
yes.
Oh, this was such a pleasure. Really, that was a fast hour.
Yeah. Usually we go 3 hours, but...
But I told you about my 60-minute thing. Thanks for
usually
getting
it's that
that
middle part. The first hour is like, and then the second hour is like, oh boy, here we
See,
go.
but it's just like the book.
It really is. It really is.
And then you get to the third hour and you go, we're gonna,
there's
close.
you get that second wind. I'm like, okay, we're so deep, we'll be fine. But I do appreciate sitting down for the time that we have, and people can get all your books, obviously, on Amazon. Is there anywhere else that you'd like to direct
My books
them
are
for?
available where books are sold.
There you go.
And I've got 7 books out, actually 8 books out in this past 8 years because The Jailhouse Lawyer is 2 full-length novels in my volume with James Patterson. You can look for me. My website is nancyallenbooks.com, and got a Facebook page, Nancy Allen Author. You can find me Grand Central Publishing or Hachette Book Group, and as we all know, Amazon has everything. But Barnes & Noble, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can find Renegade at Walmart and Sam's. I do love Walmart. Thank you for selling my books. It makes my heart warm. They paved the roads of Arkansas with gold. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So anyway, this has been a pleasure. I'm trying to think. Okay, I got one more thing, and I'm going to end with it.
Absolutely.
The Elsie books have been optioned for television, all 4. Bam.
All 4?
Oops, can't tell anymore. I really can't tell anymore.
What?
I can't tell anymore.
Off the podcast. I just want to know the streaming company that what they be launched on.
It is a network.
Oh, it's a network. Excellent.
It is a network.
Wow, that's huge.
Except, a lot of stuff gets optioned that doesn't get made. Elsie was optioned before in 2015, and I went on Facebook, and I told everyone in the world that I had met or hadn't met that Elsie was going to be a television star.
Yeah.
And then it died on the vine. And then I had to untell so many people.
Right. Yeah. But there's never been a better time for something to become a series.
I mean, we got the streamers now. There's a hunger for content, a need for content.
You can't satiate it. Paramount Plus and Peacock, and I mean there are HBO.
Ozark was such an enormous hit,
Yes, right. Open up that whole world.
But Ozark is coming to a close.
Yes.
So let's have another show set in the Ozarks.
Same with True Detective. The last True Detective.
Oh my God.
Right, and that's right up your alley.
And the True Detective. Well, remember the first True Detective?
New Orleans.
Oh God, that was so good.
That was the best one.
I think it was the best. I mean, by a
hands
mile.
Down. Oh my God.
So
hand down.
this is something when I do my little speech that I usually show. But I was actually in a True Detective magazine. I always hold that out and say, I don't know if you have your 1980 whatever version of Front Page Detective, but I do. Because there I am, a kid.
Oh, wow.
I was a kid. And this case that I tried it solo. They gave me that file 10 days before trial. A murder prosecution of a 17-year-old. They gave me that 10 days before trial and said, because everybody was running for office. The prosecutor was running for Congress. And the next 2 guys down in the Greene County office were running against each other for prosecutor. And nobody wanted to try this case because they thought it was a loser because the defendant was 16. So they went, hey, Nancy, you go to trial in 10 days. And off I went. And so I was 25 years old.
Wow.
Trying first-degree murder case.
Wow.
Which I won. But
which was not supposed to happen.
Which was not supposed to happen, because if they thought it was a winner, the guys who were running for office would have tried it.
Hole-in-one for them.
And free, they would have had the free exposure of the newspaper, so
and
forth.
You took it home.
So, and it happened that a writer for the Detective magazine was sitting there through the trial. So.
Oh, wow. That is amazing.
So anyway, look how beautifully preserved this is. That. Actually, those two, oh my, and then I always, this is not my picture.
I was like, whoa, is that a Playboy? What's going on? No, you need to put that on the
Pulp
wall.
Fiction.
A shadow box or something.
Oh my, because it's going to fall apart. It's going to fall apart. But anyway, yeah, that's one of my visual aids.
That's so
when I give
cool.
a little presentation.
That's amazing. Will you be doing any book tours, speaking?
Do you know I do things locally. Mm-hmm. This is as far as I've come so far. I do think I'll be going to St. Louis. I've got a launch at the university campus at Missouri State University 1 week from today.
Nice.
And but as far as a tour where I go across, that wouldn't even be fun.
Oh,
I mean, I did virtual things.
Sure,
I did,
Yeah.
podcasts and stuff in the past week virtually.
Yeah.
And but
like I think a reading from you would be so much fun.
I'll be doing that at Missouri State. So,
can the public come?
Oh,
or?
yeah.
I'd like to do that.
We're beating the drum for the public to come. Yes.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
So
I always like to hear authors read their own words, because they put the dialect in and they put the pacing.
I always wonder, why don't they ask me
Right.
to do the audio book?
Yeah, they should.
Because now I can see why I wouldn't do the audio book for Renegade, but
Right.
but for my Elsie books, they didn't ask me to do the audio book.
Really?
And I read. Oh, I should have told this. Well, at any rate, I'll tell you now. I read every chapter aloud. It's part of my process.
As you're editing?
I write it down in ink, and then I get it in the computer, and then when I print it out, the next step is to read it out loud, because when I hear it, I know, for one thing, if your dialogue works, but even your sentences, does it not ring well? Is it awkward?
Right.
Does it, So, and so I'll read it out loud, I'll revise, I'll work on it, and then I give it a final read, and if it sounds right, then it's ready
good to go. Nice, good to go. Well, that's some amazing news, and I'm so happy you shared it with me.
Really, I can't tell anymore because
I totally
got to get the green light from.
Yeah,
they get to announce it to the trades first.
Sure.
Which is why I thought we've got a few more seconds.
I'll just drop this.
That's
on
a
them.
good option. Bam.
Whoa! No, that's amazing and well deserved, and it's going to be so exciting to watch it develop.
Well, or not,
because
that showbiz. That's what I learned back in 2015. Is. What do you mean it's not gonna happen? What do you mean?
Yep.
But won't be made if it's not options. So it's just step one.
There's a whole book called Development Hell, and all it is just things that never made it, and it's about that thick. So
I get that.
Yeah.
I do.
There's a lot of moving parts,
and
a lot of money.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And getting the right people involved and the right people to say yes, and then things not falling through, development hell. But I am more philosophical about it than I was in 2015 because I thought, how can this be? This just can't happen. This is the most terrible thing that ever happened.
I see.
But now I'm like, que sera, sera. I mean, this thing with Renegade, it was supposed to be, we had someone, it was going to happen. We had a big producer. And then, I don't know. Like I said, that wasn't my job. I was supposed to get a book deal and create a book, which I did do.
Right.
But I don't know if it was a pandemic because a lot of stuff was shut down during the pandemic or what. But there's a film deal no one's told me.
Yeah.
But I did my part.
Pandemic did alter a lot.
So much on that landscape. That was
pretty tough, especially in
the entertainment entertainment landscape.
Yeah,
it made it impossible to work. Yeah.
It did make it impossible.
Anywhere. It's like. Couldn't work in California. You couldn't work in London. You couldn't work anywhere.
Travel. Couldn't get large groups together. Well, I'm sorry, large groups are how movies and TV shows are made. So
exactly. So talking to each other. Can't make a movie where people are wearing masks.
No, not at all.
I
think we're coming to the clear of that, but we're on the edge. Yeah, exactly.
I think so too. Yeah. Even with this new variant, they're saying, this is like an offshoot of Omicron, but it's gonna be all right. We're coming to the endemic. So.
Right, I think so too, and we kind of know how to live with it, and we've learned from it.
Did you ever catch it?
Twice.
My daughter got it twice. She brought it home for Christmas twice. Of course, she lived in New York. What you gonna do?
Sure,
know?
Yeah.
Really?
A lot of people there.
I didn't, but I mean,
that's good.
We weren't out among people. We had the ability to kind of insulate ourselves. So
So I live in a rural area, so I did really good. Until I went to a wedding, and then that's when I got nailed.
And that's what people will tell a story. I've heard a lot of wedding stories. In fact,
I think that was what they call a super spreader.
Yes, I think that's just exactly what they called that.
In fact, I had to call into Kansas Health to, I think I had to say like when I got it, because they were trying to track everything. And I go, yeah, I got it at a wedding. They go, the Fry wedding? And I go,
oh my gosh,
precisely.
They even knew?
They even knew.
That's so funny.
Because everybody there got it. So, but yes, we're coming to the end of that.
Yes, and boy, am I glad.
Man, me
about
too.
this TV thing,
yeah.
That was kind of a bucket list thing. And I thought,
oh, yeah, fantastic.
Then I'm done. If that happened, how many times? I've said that a lot of times. If I can just get a book deal, I'm done. Right. If I could just see it at Barnes & Noble, I'm done. And then if I could just make it on the New York Times bestsellers list, I'm done.
Yeah.
You're never done. There's always something else to want.
It's that proverb that behind the mountains, there's more mountains.
Really, it's true.
But that gives you an aim.
That's true.
Because if you said I'm done, well,
then what are you going to do?
Yeah,
what are you going to do?
No, you go find another mountain. You say, all right, New York Times bestseller. All right, miniseries. Okay.
Yeah.
You just keep going. Gives you something to aim for and work for. Well, this has been such a pleasure, Nancy.
This has been so fun.
Thank you so much. Yes.
This was really fun. And so nice to do it face to face.
Absolutely.
I hate the Zoom thing. God.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
Not at all.
But you have a real gift for making it conversational and fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And anytime you'd like to come back, if you have another book or
maybe if we get that
town,
TV thing.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, that would be amazing.
Because that'd be something new to talk about.
Yeah.
I told you so many of my stories.
Right.
Now.
That would be super fun. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the podcast with Nancy Allen. I had a lot of fun speaking with her. I hope she comes back soon. That last little bit of information was very exciting, and I look forward to seeing how that all develops and comes to fruition. But a warm thank you to Nancy for taking the time to come down and spend some time with me face to face and sharing secrets and stories and just a really enjoyable time sitting down with her and discussing things. So I look forward to next time you come on, Nancy. Appreciate it. Alrighty, everybody. Thanks for listening once again. Episode number 68. Next week's going to be a big one. We have Devin Parida and J.W. Wright, both jiu-jitsu black belts, coming on. So I get to sit in a room with killers. It always makes me a little nervous because I can't stop them. But no, they're really awesome guys, and I'm looking forward to speaking with them. And then about that time, we'll be into April. So it'll be a whole nother month and a whole nother list of guests. So as always, I love all of you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for the support. Check out the links below in the description. You can find I'll link to Renegade and all of Nancy's books, as well as links to support the podcast if you feel generous, if you feel magnanimous, and want to support the podcast through crypto, through fiat, through a comment, a like, whatever. It's all good. As long as you guys are having fun, I'm having fun. So, alrighty. Thanks, everybody. Peace.
Sci-Fi wins.